All right, everybody, good evening. We're doing this at a little bit of a different time this week, but better is late than never. And we did get this in before the main body of college football action kicks off tomorrow. So let's go ahead and jump into College Football Prospect Wednesday on a Friday. Don't worry, guys. Next week, things are going to make a lot more sense. Trust me. I know that everyone's very confused right now, but next week it'll start sliding back into place. So, college football Wednesday on a Friday. We start with the offense. And we basically just try to take a look at the players that are impressing at positions that might be of interest for the Seahawks in the upcoming 2024 or 2025, excuse me, NFL draft. So, let's start with quarterback here. Now, I've said plenty about how I don't think this quarterback class is worth anything. But there are a couple good names to call out here, although some of them made the list just because somebody needed to. I'm just going to be honest. This is not my favorite crop. So we are going to lead off with Cam Ward, which we often do when we do this segment every week for the Hurricanes. Now, I'm going to be honest. I wasn't crazy about the game Cam Ward played. I actually watched most of it as it was happening because it was the only game on at that time. And I know he put up the big numbers, but the problem is Cam Ward, when you fall behind by that many points, of course you're going to put up numbers. You're going to have, it's kind of the thing we're seeing with Geno Smith in a couple of games lately, right? Like, I'm not knocking you for putting up the numbers, but it's a lot easier to throw for 400 yards when you're throwing the ball 50 times. So, I honestly feel like Cam Ward made a lot of mistakes in that game to put them in that hole. Did a nice job digging out of it, but man, this one got a little bit out of hand. The interception that Cam Ward threw was as bad a throw as you're going to see any quarterback make. Still though, 35 of 53 for 437 yards, 2 touchdowns, ran for a touchdown, accounted for over 450 yards. I mean, there's something to be said for that. And scoring the 25-point comeback, that's kind of the stuff of legends. It's just, it was a weird path he took to get there, man. And I feel like him doing things like this, having games like this, potentially winning the Heisman on the back of his what will be insanely good numbers. I'm worried that he's going to get overdrafted. I think some team is going to get way over their skis on him. He's not a top 10 talent, but I think someone will construe him as one. Nevertheless, in this, I will concede he is probably my QB1 in this class as of this moment. Connor Wegman was back this week for Texas A&M, and it was an interesting game that he played. 18 of 22, 276 yards, 5 rushes for 33 yards. However, A&M kept running the ball into the end zone, so they ran for 5 touchdowns in this game. So Wegman didn't actually have any touchdowns himself, but I thought he played really well. And we're starting to see the Connor Wegman we thought we were going to see at the start of the year when he crapped the bet against Notre Dame. So that's cool. Starting to get a little bit of life on that side of things. 82.9 PFF grade. A&M blew out a top 10 ranked team, by the way. So that is kind of where I'm looking for quarterbacks right now. I don't like the top guys that much. But Connor Wegman, Cade Klubnik, guys like that, there might be a little something there. Speaking of Klubnik, played a pretty good game for Clemson this week. Not stellar or anything, but this week, where there wasn't a lot of great quarterback play, I thought he was one of the better ones. 19 of 33, 235 yards, 2 touchdowns, 11 rushes for 62 yards, 67.4 PFF grade, pretty good. I wouldn't exactly call that Clemson offense stacked with talent, so I'm going to feel pretty good about those numbers. I did put Carson Beck here. Obviously, I'm not a fan at this point. I'm pretty down on Carson Beck. But 23 and 29 for 240 yards, 2 touchdowns, 88.4. He did play well. I'm just so uninterested in him. It's not even funny. And then you got Will Howard. That would be kind of a super sleeper. He's probably a late round guy at best from Ohio State. But he played a really good game. I'm not a big fan. I think he's the definition of like a Ken Dorsey type. But I kind of feel the same way about Carson Beck. At least I don't have to spend a first round pick to get Carson Beck. 21 of 25, 209 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick, 10 carries for 28 yards and a touchdown, 77.4, pretty good. Okay, that's the quarterbacks this week. Now let's go to receivers. There were some good receiver games this week, by the way. Some receivers balled out, and it's a lot of familiar faces, but not all of them. Like Tez Johnson's made this list a few times, the Oregon guy, 10 catches, 84 yards and a touchdown, 81.6. Igbuka's made the list a couple times now, Ohio State, 9 catches, 11 targets, 71 yards and 3 touchdowns, big, 76.3. Xavier Restrepo, again, I feel like receiving stats are deceiving in games where your team falls way behind and then they just have to pass a billion times. But 7 catches for 163 yards. That's big play stuff right there. 72.8 PFF. 9 targets. Very efficient. So Restrepo, definitely turning heads positively. Torrey Holton, we've talked about him a little bit before. The Colorado State guy. 9 catches, 158 yards and a touchdown. 79.9. Doesn't have a great quarterback at Colorado State, so very impressive player there. And this final guy is kind of a... He's kind of come out of nowhere here with some really good games lately, and his best one was this week for Utah State. Jalen Royals. This guy's starting to get some really positive attention. He's kind of blown up on the scene out of nowhere. 9 catches, 211 yards against Boise State, 2 touchdowns. He did have 2 drops, but very productive, 74.6. Of course, Utah State still gets worked because they're going up against Ashton Gentil, but that's not really his fault now, is it? Tight ends, not a stellar week for tight ends. Again, Harold Fannin Jr. is the only guy who's like big time. Other than that, you've got like Colston Loveland, who I'm grading on a curve because he doesn't have a good quarterback. 6 catches on 11 targets, 33 yards and a touchdown against Washington's tough defense on the road. Pretty good still, though. Nothing crazy, but pretty good. Tyler Warren of Penn State, 3 catches for 29 yards and a touchdown. Decent PFF score. Luke Lakey, Iowa, 5 catches on 5 targets, 39 yards, 73 PFF. Jack Velling, MSU, this is Michigan State. 6 catches, 6 targets, 53 yards, 71.6. I mean, it's all so routine, right? Excuse me. The one guy who really stands out would be Fannin again. 9 catches on 9 targets for 135 yards. And 2 rushes for 37 yards and a rushing touchdown. So being used creatively. I understand that it's Bowling Green and he's still not on the level of the top prospects, but Harold Fannin Jr., he's going to be the most productive tight end in the country this year, I think. 84 PFF grade. The guy can play. The guy can ball. All right, now we move to the offensive line here. A couple guys on the left guard list. Finally, Tyler Booker, although... it's tough, right? For some reason, those Alabama offensive linemen get punished sometimes by PFF grading. Not the best day for Alabama as a team, but Tyler Booker did seem to have his best game of the year. Didn't allow any pressures. Alabama didn't run the ball that well, but that's because they didn't try. Ran the ball for about 4 yards an attempt. 64.1 PFF grade for Booker. Pretty good. Donovan Jackson, he continues to play really well when he's in there. For Ohio State, a pressure. 203 rushing yards, 5.1 yards a carry for the team, and a 71.3 PFF grade. Last guy's a new guy. This is not Ohio State. This is Oregon State. Joshua Gray. He's starting to make waves as one of the better interior guards in this draft. This game allowed a pressure, 250 rushing yards by the Beavs. 5.3 yards per carry, 71.8 PFF grade. He's starting to push his way up the list here. We're starting to actually get something with him. Sorry about that. My phone becomes very popular whenever I'm trying to record a video. But yeah, moving on to center now. A couple of guys. Jonah Monheim. I think I've talked about him once before. He's a kind of a late bloomer at USC. Playing good center for them. USC ran the ball very effectively against Minnesota, even though they didn't win. 0 pressures allowed. 67.4. He's emerging as one of the best centers in the country. Mostly because of an absence of competition. Parker Brailsford. Generally considered to be the best. And, I mean, PFF has not been a fan. I'll put it to you that way. I'm not saying they're the end-all, be-all, but it's worth noting. 0 pressures allowed in this game. 84 rushing yards by Alabama, which is whatever. 62.6. I mean, it's just okay, but it's actually the best game he's had this year. And then Bryce Foster of Kansas. 1 pressure allowed, 151 rushing yards by Kansas' offense. 71.6, continues to grind out pretty good and pretty respectable play. And then this was actually a nice week for some right tackle prospects, so let's send it home with these guys. I like what I see. And by the way, not all these guys are playing right tackle, but I think most of them, if not all of them, will end up playing right tackle in the NFL. Wyatt Millam of West Virginia. West Virginia ran for almost 400 yards. They are just dominant on the ground. I think Millam ends up on the right side, and I think he's going to be a great right tackle. No pressures allowed. 6 yards per carry. 86.1 PFF grade. He's been killing it this year. Blake Miller of Clemson's another guy who I think will be a good prospect at right tackle this draft. 1 pressure allowed in this game. 265 rushing yards by Klemp. 6.6 yards per carry, 74.1 PFF grade. Johnny Cornelius, the right tackle for Oregon, no pressures allowed. They ran the ball for over 200 yards, 5.8 yards a carry, 71.1 PFF. Jack Nelson of Wisconsin. I think he mostly plays left tackle for Wisconsin, but will probably slide to the other side in the NFL. Didn't allow any pressures. 228 rushing yards, almost 230 rushing yards, 5.6 yards a carry, 90.1 PFF grade, sterling stuff. And I dread this one because of the last name, but Jonah Savaiinaia of Arizona, who is probably going to be a first-round pick in this draft. I think we got to throw him up here now, too. He may end up sliding inside, by the way, which would be interesting, but 1 pressure allowed, 121 rushing yards, 68.2 PFF grade. He's starting to turn it on this season. And one way or the other, he's going to be a top prospect. All right, so that's it for the offense. We're going to do the defense in a couple of hours. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what stands out to you. I will see you guys soon. Go Hawks.